Hi everyone, my name is Alexis. I hope you are all well. I guess it starts to be a bit tough after all this conference. So I manage apps and gaming partnerships teams for EMEA. So basically our role at Google is to help our partners to generate more revenue thanks to all the products we have. Specifically for app developers, I would say AppHub, which is a big focus for us right now. I'm going to speak about a big cake. A cake of $62 billion for you guys, which is basically the value of in-app ad advertising by 2017. It's booming. Every year, year after year, this number is booming. Basically, what we look at is advertisers who shifted the way they are investing in terms of placement, in terms of devices. And for sure, as advertisers are following the users wherever they are investing massively right now in apps, more and more, and you will see this number going up year after year. So it's very promising, and the whole idea here is to understand how you guys can grab a piece of this cake more and more in a smart way without disturbing your users. Before, I was doing the same kind of keynote, but for gaming companies, and we really try to differentiate the approach of monetization. And obviously, right now, we have more and more great products for non-gaming apps. When we look at this number, everybody says gaming is eating the world in terms of monetization. These are the only companies who can make a lot of cash, which is absolutely not true. When you look at the dispatch right now of who is grabbing what, basically, we see that non-gaming apps is right now 61% of the total revenue generated by apps. So there's no question about that. For sure, gaming is really powerful. But apps globally is super powerful. And you guys, dating app, services app, entertainment app, fitness app, music apps, all these great apps you built are generating more revenue than gaming apps for sure. So it's something really promising. And no one here has it in mind. So let's have this number in mind. 61% is for non-games app right now. When we speak about monetization, it's as well, a lot of people is really focused on in-app purchase. And this is the main focus for a lot of companies, in-app purchase or transaction, I would say. And obviously, we've seen some big names in the industry who started to shift as well the way they are monetizing by adding ads as an additional revenue stream. It's not basically a defocus of in-app purchase, which is a big, or transaction, which is a big focus for everyone. But it's by adding a new revenue stream in a very smart way in your apps. And we're going to look at this topic right now. So basically, when you look at the strategies, people who combine both model, ads and in-app purchase, it's 2x compared to people who are focusing only on ads or only on in-app purchase. Because right now, we give you the possibility to make it in a much better way than before, thanks to data and thanks to all the knowledge we have about your users, your audience, where to place ads, which formats, for what kind of users. And everything will start basically with user segmentation. You all have some users who will click on ads in your content. You all have, potentially, if you don't have ads, but you all have some users who might click on ads. Users who pay in-app purchase, users who do both, users who do nothing, basically. So the whole idea of AppHub right now is really take 4 buckets and work differently depending on the user you have in your content. And then you are going to build some amazing strategies for each one of them. Everything is related to data. Data is clearly at the heart of any monetization strategies right now. It has been a big challenge for app developers before. The main challenge was how am I going to collect such an amount of data? This is solved. We know how to do that. There is no issue about that. We know how to do that. Right now, the whole idea is really how can I leverage on this data I have in my content. And Francesco will speak about that a bit later. But basically, in terms of average revenue per user, lifetime value, day 1, day 7, retention rate, virality as well, all these KPIs you have to work on have to be 100% data-driven. So the whole idea is how can you combine data within your strategy. Obviously, we provide this data piece within all our products right now, which is something priceless for your monetization strategies and for your business. don't speak Portuguese with a Spanish girl. So basically, pick the right format for the right people. Right now, we are not speaking, when we speak about monetization, I know that it can be considered as a retention killer, which was the case before with very classic formats, even if it's very powerful in terms of monetization, in terms of CPM, basically, for you guys. Right now, the whole idea is to pick the right format because we've launched a lot of new formats. When I think about native ads, for example, it's a great way for non-gaming apps to monetize in a very good way your audience without disturbing the user experience. We have done really amazing progress on that field by knowing which user to target with what kind of format, and it's super efficient. We see amazing new revenue stream for the partner we work with, and it's really a good way to go on. Finally, and I will end with this slide, basically the whole philosophy of our product right now is to be smart. Smart by knowing your users for sure, but by pushing the right ad at the right moment to the right users with the right format. That's the whole idea. That sounds like a dream for people who like to monetize, but it's obviously now a reality, and we have the tools to provide that kind of strategies. You can build tailor-made strategies for each one of your users, and this is the whole idea. So you are non-gaming apps developers in this room, and we have a lot of non-gaming apps developers we work with. If we work together, challenge us. If we don't work together, have a chat with us. We'll be more than happy to explain you the full value of monetization with all the new tools we are releasing, and thank you for your attention. Thanks.
Thank you, Alexis. So we see the importance that we need smart strategies to monetize. It's not about, do I do an in-app purchase or do I do ads? It's about how can we mix both in a smart way for the right kind of user. Next up, we have Francesco Bonatesta, who's flying from Paris to give a talk to you today about how to use your data. Francesco is a mobile solutions consultant, and he works with our top developers across EMEA to see how they can blend their analytics with their advertising, with their Play Store, so they can focus on what they do best, which is taking care of their users. So please give a round of applause for Francesco.
Thank you. Thank you, Miguel. So, hello everyone, I'm Francesco. I'm actually based in the Milan office. Great. And I work for Google as a mobile solutions consultant. So I work with mobile app developers across Europe to help them with the monetization solution. So I work together with the sales guys to actually implement the solutions on the partner side, and as well other products like Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, and this is what we will see today. Basically, you know, mobile is growing a lot. This year, the number of searches on google.com from mobile in May has surpassed the number of searches on desktop. This is a huge change. Mobile data traffic is growing much faster than the internet itself was growing in the past. We have more phones than people. We have more connections than people. And you know how many smartphones were sold in 2014, 1.2 billion smartphones in the world. So if you put all these smartphones in a line, you would basically cover all the way from Sydney to San Francisco, just with the smartphones that were sold last year. So this is huge. And this is growing much faster than the web before. And what challenges does this bring us? It's harder on mobile versus on web to understand users and actually to tailor an experience for your users in a different way according to what the user needs are. So this turns into a growth in number of data. So if you have, let's say, an app with 10K users, and let's say all these users generate 2 sessions per day, and you track 20 events. So you track that the user visited that page, then that other page. You get 400K data points a day. But if you have millions of downloads, then the amount of data points that you get is huge. But data points are the signals about what your users like or dislike about your app. And so the worst error that you could do is actually to ignore this huge amount of data that you can collect and not do anything with it. So you could basically behave like Smaug, the dragon of the Hobbit, which sits on a huge amount of gold, of coins, of treasures, but doesn't do anything with it. You have all these coins are the data points that come from your users, and you can either do as he does, so not do anything with it, or you can use it to make your app better. So here the suggestion is use your data. Not just collect it for the purpose of collecting it, but for the purpose of improving your application. So what we will see today in the presentation is basically what you can track with Google Analytics and how you can use this data. I'll give you some examples also that some partners, some non-gaming partners have implemented and how they have actually used the data to turn them into insights. And the second part, we'll actually see a practical example of how when you find an idea after analyzing data, you put that in practice and you test how users react to it. So tracking. If you integrate Google Analytics, which is pretty easy right now, it's not an additional SDK in Android because it's integrated in the Play services. In iOS, of course, it's an SDK. You can get, just by integrating it and sending at least one hit, we call it that way, you can get demographic data, so you can know where your users come from in terms of geo, which kind of device, age, et cetera, et cetera. You can then track the screens. So basically, what screens of your application, what pages of your application your users are doing. But you can go more granular. You can track single events. So let's say if your users are clicking on some specific, I don't know, affiliate links that you have, or if users are going from one section to the other, you can get pretty granular at it. And you can also track within analytics itself the in-app purchases, and so the amount of money that users are spending. If you have virtual currency in your application, you can track that as well and use the data. But what's the importance of that? Now we will see how you can use actually this data, especially the thing about screens. It's pretty high level right now, but we will see it more in detail. But I want to leave you before with an important sentence. Develop a plan before you track. Usually, the development life cycle in apps is very fast, very agile, and so developers tend to integrate SDKs but not plan in advance about what to track and how to use the data. So it's important to take some time in your development cycles, in your product cycles, to decide what you want to track, and only track the things that help you make decisions. So ask yourself the questions. If I track this, will I be able to change something in my application according to what I get out of it? Let's see a practical example. This is the flow visualization. So basically, you can see, if you track the screens in your application, you can see how many of your users get to the first screen, of course, everyone who opens the application, how many of them select category 1, how many of them select category 2, and how many of the ones who have selected category 2 go then to another page in your application. What's the importance of this? You can understand which path in your application is the most popular among your users, and it may be very well different from what you had in mind when you designed the flow that your users should have in your application. You may find that the path is different country by country, or it's different for some kind of users who are interested in some specific things versus some other kind of users. But what does this give you? It allows you to understand where do your users give up. The objective that you have is that your users spend as much time as possible in your application independently on the monetization model you have. If you have ads, of course, you get more impressions and then you earn more revenue. If you have enough purchases, if the users find the value of your application, they can buy more and spend more. So in any case, it's important to understand where the users stop using your applications in order to make them better. Or if you've launched a new functionality and you see that users are not getting to it, maybe it's hidden. So change the position in the menu where it is, or put a tutorial on how to use that functionality in the home screen when the users update their application, so that they will know, and then you will be able to see if things change. Here we have an example. This is made an example in games, but it's pretty similar. If you see, let's say that the majority of the users complete some level, but only a few of them complete another level, then it means that it's really hard. So what you can do here to change it is put a tutorial or put some extra lives, some things that users can buy to get past it. And the same applies actually to your application. Let's say if you show videos or articles, and you find that at some point in time users don't watch another video or don't read another article, maybe try to make that moment more engaging. So provide different information, different buttons, or explain the users the possibilities that they have in continuing using your application. As well, you can use that to identify what are the places where you could put ads, because those are the places where users spend the most time. And you know, of course, most of you will have used already Google Analytics or any other analytics solutions. You can create segments of users based on all the data. So you can segment by users who have visited screen A and then screen B, users who are in Italy, users who are in Italy and bought at least €5 in IAPs, etc., etc. You can create any combination of segments you want. And as Alexei was saying before, you can use this information to target in-app purchase ads into AppHub. So you may have in-app purchase banners in different positions versus ads, but you might as well have them in the same position, especially, for example, in interstitials. So interstitials are tricky because maybe you get sometimes bad reviews because of excessive advertising. So you may want to show the interstitials where users really don't buy while showing an in-app purchase to a user who is likely to buy. So this way you get a more positive review from the user who was likely to buy and a better revenue stream. So you can use the segments that you can build with any combination of the dimensions we've seen before in analytics. You can export them to AppHub and then decide whether to target advertising or in-app purchases in the same screen, in the same interstitial, for example, to your users. You can also allow Google Analytics to do that and AppHub to do that by himself because we have the data from the Play Store, so we can estimate if the user is likely to buy. So you have the possibility to use a predefined segment of users likely to buy and target that segment for in-app purchase ads. Otherwise, you can build your own segmentation. But now let's see, you have analyzed the data, you have seen all the flow, you have seen that users drop at some point in time. And you want actually to change your application. You want to make something different in order to see how to interact with your users better. And you come up with different ideas. You brainstorm with your product team and you have different ideas. So you cannot, in web, it would be pretty easy to test them because, it would be pretty easy to test them because you would just release a new version of the site and it would be live immediately to all of your users. You can also set up some JavaScript code to split your users in, let's say, 50% you show version A, 50% show version B based on the cookies, and it's pretty easy to do, and you can basically test how the users react to it. In apps, this is extremely difficult. So if you have different things that you want to try, you have to redevelop your application, you have to publish it into the App Store, you have to wait for the approval, you need to wait for users to download it, to get the update, and then, after all these weeks, you will show only one version, probably, of the ones that you wanted to try. And then it will take some time to measure, etc., etc. Now we will see how you can do the same thing that you would do in web with Google Tag Manager and with Google Analytics, so in a much simpler way. An example. These are real-life examples that we did with some partners. How frequently, if you have, let's say, a news app where users can swipe between articles, every X articles you want to show an interstitial. But you don't know how frequently. If you show it every article, users would probably drop off and stop using the app. If you show it every 20 articles, then of course you're showing very few interstitials, so it's really, you're not monetizing at your best. So you may want to try, what if I show an interstitial every 5 articles? What if I show it every 7, every 9, every 10? And see what is the variation that performs best. Or if you have a listing of topics, if you have a classified application, for example, you may show native ads, 1 every 5 of your organic results, but you don't know, it's 1 every 5 the right amount or 1 every 10, and you want to balance between them. So how can you actually make an informed decision and test different variations? You can do that with Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager with a functionality called content experiments. Basically, in Google Tag Manager, which was originally built for web, so probably some of you have used it in the web, but it's now fully supporting applications as well, you can define a container. A container is an object that you can then retrieve in your application. We'll see how it is made. It's made like this one. And it contains information that you can then use in your application, but you can change from the UI of Google Tag Manager without having to redeploy your application. So originally, what do? You integrate Google Tag Manager in your application, you call it, and Google Tag Manager will return this container, which contains some options that then you need to handle in your application. So in your application, you read these values, and you decide what you have to do. Color red, I put the background as a red. Or I can say, show an interstitial every 5 articles, and I can have a number there that I read, and then my app interprets it and shows an interstitial every 5 articles. What is the beauty of that? You can set up variations of these values, up to 10, actually, that will be dynamically assigned to percentage of your users of your choice. So this means that basically you can, controlling it from the UI, you can show to 50% of users version A with a red background, let's say, 25% of users version B, 25% of users version C. You can have up to 10 variations. You can choose the percentages as you want, and you can, in the meanwhile, measure the performance of your application. So of course, you need to develop in advance, so your app has to integrate Google Tag Manager, which is not an additional SDK in Android. It's integrated in Play Services. In iOS, of course, it is. You need to call it, interpret the values that you read, and so make the app behave differently, so read the value and use it. But then you can configure and change the behavior from the UI without having to republish your application. So if you have Brainstorm and you have like 5 variations that you want to test, you set up a container, you call it variation A, B, C, and D. The app asks Tag Manager, which variation should I display? Tag Manager replies according to the percentage that you've specified, and the app behaves differently for different users. And you can do everything with that. You can change pricing of your elements in the app, in-app purchase pricing, for example. You can change position of the ads. You can change order of elements in a menu. You can change how the home screen looks like if there are different placements of the different elements. You can use it as you want, because really it's up to you how you use the data. But you can go further than that. You can actually, if you connect Google Tag Manager with analytics, you can basically evaluate each variation against a goal. So let's say your goal is the amount of time that users spend in app. You can set up that goal in Google Analytics and see each of the variations that you have set up, how well it performs with respect to that goal. So you will see version A brings me an average session length of 5 minutes, while version B brings me an average session length of 4 minutes. So maybe it's better if I increase the percentage of users in version A versus version B. And you can also try again and again and change it. Also, another thing that analytics can do for you, if you want, this is pretty advanced, you can set it up so that it automatically selects the best performing variation according to the metric that you want to optimize automatically. So basically, you can say you have this screen where you can configure, I want to include all my users in the segment, adjust dynamically the percentage of users, and then I want to run the experiment for 2 weeks and automatically select the best performing variation in the end. So you can do that, or you can simply look at the reporting and see which of the variation is performing the best. So variation 2 is yielding you this conversion rate, so percentage of users who are buying. Variation 3 is going a little bit worse. Variation 1 is not performing at all. So in the end, you can manually choose, or you can let analytics choose after some amount of time what's the best variation. Let's come back to the example with which I started the experiment, the talk. Here is a real-life example that we did with a partner. So every how many swipes should I show an interstitial? And they saw, for example, they tried with these 5 values, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. They found that if you show an interstitial more rarely than 9 times, you don't get any benefit in terms of number of articles seen. So user engagement, it's pretty much the same. If you go down here, you just lose revenue. While if you go low here, users start not using the app. So they actually consume half the content that they would do if you showed an interstitial every 9 times. Of course, this is not the answer to the question. The answer to the question is, how frequently to show an interstitial is have a key value to determine this. So set up an experiment, try it, and see how your users behave. And also, the thing is, you can redo the same experiment after some time to test if your users' behavior has changed. Because maybe you take decisions at some point in time, but then after a year, you may question them again because you have new users from new generations, et cetera, et cetera. So they may behave differently. They may like different things. And if you still have the experiment in your application, you can change it and test it in a matter of minutes by just changing it in the UI without doing any development again in the application. So a recap of what we've seen. Don't be a data dragon. Use the pile of gold that you have under you to make informed decisions and to improve your application. In order to do this, you need to track the things that help you make decisions. So develop a measurement plan, develop a testing plan, decide what variations you want to test after you analyze the data, and put them in place, and do this. So keep testing, use the data to improve your application, and in the end, all of your users will benefit from it. So thank you very much. Any questions? Too overwhelming? Too many things? Okay. Yep.
Just wanted to check. Did you say this was available on iOS as well as through?
Right, right. So Google Tag Manager is available for both Android. It's the guy over there, I guess.
Grab it.
Yay. Oh, ouch. Good, good, good. So yeah, it's available on both Android and iOS, and it works the same way. In Android, it's already integrated in the Play services, so it's pretty easy. On iOS, you just need to integrate the SDK, but yeah, it's pretty much the same.
So how do you configure it for the, do I have to because I've only got an iOS app at the minute for my clients, so if I wanted to use this, how could I make that work?
Yeah, they need to integrate the SDK. Then you need to define the structure of the container, so which variables you would put in it. You will create it from the UI, you will name all these variables, and you will assign the values in the UI. And then the app will need to read the container, know what kind of values to expect, and then react. There will be an if at some point in the app to choose which things to display according to the value of the container. And then this way the app will be set up. And of course, it has to be released to the App Store. After that, you can simply change the values from the UI of Google Tag Manager, and the app will be updated automatically. We'll receive the new values.
Okay, great.
Great. And it's a free product. It doesn't have any tiering. So with Analytics, you have data limits, but with Tag Manager, you don't. Great. So if you're interested, talk anyways with your account manager, and yeah, sure. You wanted that. You didn't want to ask a question.
You mentioned Tag Manager Analytics. We've got Tag Manager, but we didn't install the Analytics SDK.
Yeah.
And we're running into some issues. Is that quite normal? Or is when you're describing all this, is it with the understanding that most people install Tag Manager and they install the Analytics SDK?
No, the two products are independent, so you may very well use Tag Manager alone. The advantage of using them together is that you get the reporting automatically for the segments that you define in Google Tag Manager, but you may want to track it differently. You may want to track it in your reporting system, so
but you use Tag Manager to implement Google Analytics?
You can use Tag Manager as well to implement Google Analytics, yes. Okay. Yes, yes. So Tag Manager, in addition to the values, the custom values, allows you to plug additional Google services like Google Analytics and decide when to send hits. So yeah, you can do that as well.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah. Great. So I was saying, get in touch with your account manager in case, and we are here to support you if you want to integrate that and try with some of your applications. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Francesco. Fascinating stuff. In case you missed it, did you hear the price of this product? $0, gratis, and this is going to improve your earnings. Another product that is completely free and that is going to make a big difference, but it's kind of hard to understand. Often when I have conversations with developers, mediation is not a favorite topic in terms of getting it simple. So we're going to have two speakers today that have managed to combine bananas and mediation so that everyone, when they leave the room, fully understand it and can explain it very easily. So please welcome Marcos Ordonez and Stefan on stage.
Thank you very much. I think today this is the last breakout session that we have today. My name is Marcos, and this amazing colleague that I have is Stefan. We both work in the partnerships team. Basically, what we do is to try to help app developers to get more money and monetize better their apps. So, Stefan, what do you have today here in hands?
Yeah, now that we know what we usually do, I have to tell you today it's all about this, bananas. So please raise your hand if anybody here in the audience thinks that this makes any sense. Yeah, that's what I thought. And well, actually, to the two of us, it didn't make sense until very recently. Well, after spending years and years in the app industry, it took us quite some time, and only last week, I guess, we realized that the app industry and the banana industry are basically the same. So if you strip down all that complicated buzzwords and their fancy KPIs and sophisticated terms, well, basically, the fundamentals in both industries, in the app world and in the banana world, are the same. Let me prove that. So if you want to be successful in the banana industry, you have to grow this little friend, and then you have to sell it. And as you guys are probably more into the app industry, you have to grow an audience, and afterwards you have to sell the impressions. So it's pretty much the same. Today, we're going to focus on one thing. There are two things. If we agree on that these are the two very big areas where we can work on, there are actually two ways to be more successful. On the one hand, you can really concentrate on growing more bananas, growing more impressions, get a bigger audience. And that's not what we're going to concentrate on for the next 30 minutes. The other thing is you can really concentrate on how can you sell better? How can you really get the most out of everything? Well, and in order to find out how you really can be better at selling, we have to first identify the measurement of how successful selling is defined. And that's very simple and, again, very similar in both worlds. So if we go back to our example with the yellow friend, it is pretty simple. If you want to measure how good you are at selling your banana, you have to basically take your total revenue that you have. You have to divide it by the total harvest in kilograms of that bananas that you can harvest, basically. And then you have something that we may call the effective revenue per kilogram of banana. Does that sound familiar to anyone? In the app world, it is just the same. We have the total revenue that we can get by the impressions that we have. We divide it by the total number of impressions, divided by 1,000, and then we have something that we may call the effective revenue, RPM. If we go back to the example with the bananas, just to exemplify what's really happening here, it's pretty obvious that we have this KPI to measure our success. So have a look at this. We're selling our bananas and we're making quite some money. Actually, we're making 80 cents per banana for what we are selling, which sounds pretty good. You see, we're making 2 euros per banana for some of them. We're making 1 euro for a couple of them. There are some bananas that we're not selling at all, and then there are bananas that we are selling at 20 cents. So if you're familiar with the concept of contribution margin, it might be very obvious to you that you may get a better value for what you're doing if you just start concentrating on the ones that you're not selling at the moment. So really concentrating on these ones and selling them for very little money, maybe even just 1 cent, may make you more successful. And then you can concentrate on the second batch at 20 cents, maybe on the ones for 1 euro as well. And in the end, you will find yourself making more money per bananas that you sell. Again, this is the same story in the apps universe. You might be working with a lot of different ad networks, and you might be getting pretty similar CPMs for what you sell, but they might just buy different amounts of impressions. So in this case, we have 3 networks we're working with. They're buying your impressions at the same price. It's 1 euro CPM, but they're different volumes they're buying. So we have a total of 50K impressions that you have available, and we're only selling 30,000 impressions, I guess. And even though we're getting 1 euro for each impression that we're selling, we only end up at an effective CPM of 60 cents. So whenever you try to measure your success, your effectivity and efficiency when selling your stuff, always take the whole number of impressions, the whole number of bananas into account. All right, so now we know how to sell, or what to take a look at when we're selling. What's the KPI for us? So let's get one step back and think about how to sell in the world of bananas. If you are, put ourselves again in the shoes of the banana farmer, if you are fairly small, you have like 1,000 bananas, what would you do? It is pretty simple. You would pack your stuff, get it into your truck, and you would hit the road. You would then find one of the markets and you would sell your bananas there. Pretty simple. If you only have 1,000 bananas, that is super, super simple. You end up there, you sell your bananas, you're happy at the end of the day. But I guess most of you have more bananas than just 1,000. You might have millions of them, right? So what issue might you be facing having millions of bananas to sell? Probably this little market is not big enough anymore. Probably you're only capable of selling 1,000 bananas there, maybe 2,000. You have to hit the road again afterwards, and you have to find a different market to sell the rest. And very, very often you will find yourself trying to find new markets after new markets until you have sold all of your impressions in your case. So the problem really is, in this example, can you sell everything? Do you achieve the highest prices at the right markets? And eventually, how much time do you really need to spend on the road getting to the different markets to finally get rid of all of your impressions, all of your bananas? And just to make that transition back to the world of applications, it is just the same here. Can you sell everything? Can you sell all of your impressions? Do you achieve the highest prices? Do you select the right markets? And eventually, how many different platforms do you have to manage to get rid of all of your impressions to make the most of it? Well, if we sum that up, there's one big tool that can help you in the app universe to do that, to help you sell better. We call it mediation. It's called mediation. In the banana world, I'm not too sure actually whether there's a predefined word for that, but I guess there's some things you can do there as well. And for the next, I would say 20 minutes, we're going to run through 5 main pillars that are going to help you use mediation properly and help you sell more efficiently. To start with, we're going to look at how can you actually sell more using a proper mediation service. Then we're going to show you how to find the right buyers. We're going to dig deep into the local parts, so geographies and stuff like that are very important. Then we're going to talk about the automation part, and finally, as it's all about being smart, we give you a short insight on how you can even be a bit more smarter than that. So let's get started. Marcus, tell me, how could you sell all of it?
Okay, as first point and most important one is basically let's sell all. In the farmer world, normally if you were a farmer from UK, Ireland, you will try to get your salesman and go to the most important supermarkets. In my case, I have a small Tesco down my house. That's the place where I buy my fruit. Where do you buy your fruit?
Well, I'm more the little guy.
Oh, classic, he's German. But the main point of this is that this will be in our kind of farmer day. But if we were talking about apps, then we will have something more similar to this. Thousands of ad networks. And they are getting more and more and more in the pipeline. And you're going to have more and more people calling you to get their ad network in your app. The main point here is to choose wisely. There are many ad networks. We have to choose wisely which ones we're going to choose. Here we have plenty of them. Some of them they are great in some countries. Some of them they are great in niche markets. Some of them are great in service. We are talking about selling all. In this case, where we have to focus in is in fill rates. Are they capable of selling everything I have? Then the second one and most important one is, which are the CPMs that they give me? Are they paying me well for this? So all these concepts must be taken into consideration when thinking about which ad network to use. Our suggestion, start with one, and then afterwards start with mediation and start putting 2, 3. Hear your friends, other developers that they are using, that they are monetizing with some networks, and hear their feedback. Are they giving you a good service? So, in the case of a mediation platform, what you're going to have to look for is to look for something simple. You have to have the capacity of changing ad networks easily, because sometimes ad networks work well and sometimes they work badly. So try to look for a simple tool that makes you help you to, oh, you are out, oh, you are in, oh, you get my phone call, you are in again. Okay? These are the concepts that we have to think whenever we think about how we can sell everything there. The next point is finding the right buyers. This is a good one. If we're going back to the farm world, we have only a small amount of impressions or a small amount of fruits. We'll go to the typical hipster shop that we have next to us and sell it for a crazy price. 1 kilo of banana for €7. Lovely. But we have only 10 bananas. As long as you grow and grow and grow, you will go to those supermarkets and you start to have less power of negotiations and your prices will go down. Finally, you have grown up, you're a great farmer, you want to go all around the world. In the app business, the good thing is that it's so global that we actually start from this step from the very beginning. but we have to understand those markets. The good thing about the apps and ad versions and platforms is that actually we can make them fight. As they say in the last Godzilla movie, and they make the monsters fight, let them fight. Let the supermarkets and all the shops and all the networks fight. This is the main point of mediation, because today we are here to talk about mediation. And if you work in the AdWords and you know how the auction bid works, when you are in the other side, it's more or less the same thing. If you let the networks fight, you're going to finally get better prices. Let's take a simple and easy example. This is basically 3 ad networks. My daily basis, I talk a lot with publishers, and one of the main points and things that I have to answer is, Marcos, CPMs don't move. How do we raise them? Marcos, CPMs are going low, down, 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 urgent, urgent, answer, CPMs are going down. Or, well, basically, if they go up, they don't say nothing. They just ask for something different. But this is the point. CPMs and different ad networks, they are fluent. It depends totally on the advertiser side. It depends if the advertisers are doing Christmas campaigns, Black Friday campaigns, are they more in Easter week, is the school times, and also in that part, in our case, we have AdWords that they're working. They may have a super great Christmas campaign, but maybe in January they're not having such a great time. Another guy in another ad network is having a great time. So basically, you have different prices and different CPMs by seasonality. This is a very important point when we talk about mediation, because what we want to do when we do mediation is basically get the best of them. I'm just going to get the best ad network at the best moment. This is the main point when we start with ad network, and when we have a lot of impressions, is the main thing that we have to focus in. Choose three of them so we can get the maximum out of them in every moment. At the end, we have an incredible winning ad. It doesn't matter how much beautiful is the ad format or not. It's about who is going to give you more revenue to the pocket at the end. So this was kind of easy. Let's see if we go into the world. Can you tell me something about how to adjust luckily the mediation?
Luckily, locally, exactly. So we've just heard there are many things you have to consider. There's even one more thing to have to really think about when mediating. Because just in the world of, like in the world of bananas, in the world of apps, there are many local differences. So just have a look here. We're trying to sell these yellow friends again. And if we go to different markets in different places in the world, you may find a situation just like this. So we've just picked a couple of markets here just to explain how different the markets actually are. So what would you think? What's the most expensive price you would pay in one of these cities? Just a short indication. Would you think you pay more in Hong Kong than in Istanbul? Actually, that's completely wrong. You pay the cheapest price. You pay 50 cents in Hong Kong. You pay $4 in Istanbul. Paris is quite in the middle. Then we have Dublin, which is fairly cheap again. And just for a complete picture, we have a Swiss. We have Bern here with around about $3. So what you see here, even though it's the same good, the same impression that you might be selling, they're very, very different prices that you can achieve. So would you treat all these markets the same way? Probably not. And in the apps world, it is just the same. There are different geographies, different countries that you're working with, especially if you're expanding. So if you get a big audience approaching different countries, you may find yourself in a situation that you cannot achieve the same price in India that you can achieve in the United States. So CPMs are widely different. So what you want to do then is you want to manage them by country. You don't want to have one approach for all. You want to have a very individual approach for each and every country. And a good mediation platform allows you to do just that. You cannot just manage the countries individually by CPM floors that you can put in. You can also define different rules for advertising in general. So what we heard before, it is possible to have a different approach for a different country when it comes to your strategy.
That's like the Tinder case.
Yeah, exactly. Tinder, for example, is a company that has a very, very specific approach to different geographies. So in the United States, for example, they're working with the subscription models, where in other countries they show ads, and in even other countries they have like a hybrid model where they show ads and have an in-app purchase model as well. So they really adopt to local circumstances and change their business model accordingly. And this is what it's all about in this slide. So take care of each country individually and have a platform at hand that allows you to manage each country individually. All right.
That sounds pretty complicated, I would say. I mean, I have heard plenty of people that they have those guys looking at the numbers all the time, checking all the countries, CPMs, worldwide, last hour in CPM. So it can be kind of difficult now.
Oh yeah, it can be a whole lot of work. So if you really are in a lot of countries and you want to manage all of them, then you can really spend a whole day just typing in CPM floors and having different strategies for every different market. Or you can, as indicated behind me, start to automate. In the world of bananas, it might be a bit different. You might outsource this. So you have one guy sitting there who's doing nothing else but selling your fruits at the right price to the right markets with the right contracts and circumstances and whatsoever. So you may have to find somebody who does that for you. In an ideal world, though, you can actually automate this. And I'm quite happy that we and you guys are living in a fairly ideal world when it comes to mediation platforms, because this platform behind us, by the way, it's our platform, but that doesn't play much of a big role now, gives you just that. It allows you to automate everything. So what we see here are two main concepts that we are working with. One is called ad network optimization. And what we do here is we have, in this case, a couple of different ad networks plugged in our mediation, and we pull real-time the CPMs that we can get from each network. And according to these CPMs, we order the stack. So you know this is a waterfall, and we order the stack in real time to get the highest CPMs on top at every time, and the second highest CPM on the second position, and so on and so forth. So there's no need anymore to manually have a look at historical data, find out who's paying what at the moment, and reorder the mediation waterfall. The tool does it for you. The second feature, and this is a combination of the first and another one, is the live CPM feature in addition to that feature that we saw on the left side now, the NO feature. So what we do here is we go even one step further. So we order the stack automatically with the data that we have, and then we put our network in competition with every single layer at a time. So you have an additional layer of competition, which guarantees you higher CPMs at the end. So, and as this sounds a bit complicated, it gets even more complicated when you think about the geographical parts that we talked about earlier. So this is something that happens in the country you're working in, but it happens also on a geographical level in every other country for you. So as soon as you start working with a lot of different places, you will find this feature very handy because it saves you a lot of work and you can concentrate on your actual job. All right. So finally, I think to me this sounds very smart already. This is a pretty good solution, but I guess there's a way to be even more smarter, right?
Let's try to get smarter, as we were saying. Let's try to get smarter. And what is smarter than a banana split? Lovely bananas, a strawberry, vanilla, chantilly. What a massive price for a great dessert. So let's go for, what is our banana split? What is the banana split of the developers? The banana split of the developers are the users. And we have to understand them properly. This is we have said it a lot of times today, how important are the users. When we are going to mediate, they are much more important because you have all these kind of users. You have these users that they download your app and they never use it. You have these users that they download your app and they use it every single minute of the day. You have these users that they actually download the app just to say how fancy it is, but they never open it. So it's pretty cool to understand how and what kind of users you have. For me, a very good example for a kind of users that you can have would be Runtastic, the application Runtastic. It's one of our partners, actually. I don't know if they came for these days, but I think it's very easy to understand because running, it's something that everyone does in different ways. In my case, I only run from March to June, trying to solve for my beach summer times. But some other people are running all the year preparing the next marathon. And some other guys say, okay, next week I'm going to start my first diet. I'm going to download Runtastic. It's going to be my helpful guy, but I'm going to use it only for 3 days. So taking this in consideration, will we treat every user the same way when we use advertisement? I will totally say no. In the first case, I will say, okay, this guy is a summer runner. He's going to be with me 3 months. So why don't we tend to use with him and mediate only ads and advertisement with him? Cool, it's a normal way. I use it from time to time. I can accept it. What about the one in the middle? I will try to use it for those guys that are very heavy users and that might be able to be willing to pay for getting ads out or even to get other applications that can be connected to him, maybe like swimming ones or if he is preparing the triathlon or horsing riding ones, no? Get the other ones. So we don't show ads to him and we show him you're a heavy user. Let's make other apps or make use of the other ones through the mediation stack too. And finally, no ads. Okay, this guy has been running for 30 minutes. If we use our cap app basis, you can actually take the ads for him for the next whole day. I mean, we have used enough ads for these guys. Let him run free. This is the way that could be the smartest way to find out for the mediation and the advertisement. So let's make a final wrap up of the day. How will everything be in the banana business?
Yeah, so as mentioned in the beginning, our ultimate goal is to make the most out of every banana in this case. So we have to run through a couple of different steps. Mediation is your solution. And in the beginning, you have to find the right market. You have to try to sell all of it at the right time with the right buyers. And then you have to think about adjusting locally. The banana example is pretty obvious. Automation is here pretty difficult. You might be thinking about outsourcing, and then you can even be smarter by splitting your product. But I think what's more interesting is how to wrap it up in the mediation world, right?
Yeah, because today is about mediation. Mediation. Yeah, sell all. We have this wonderful AppHub by Google, best platform ever. But you can also find other ones that can help you too. Then you can find the right buyers, let them fight. Put all the ad networks there, the most important ones for your markets, and make them fight so you get the best out of them. Third, adjust luckily. Different markets might require different ad networks. Some of them will pay you well in Brazil, some of them will pay you better in China. Finally, automate. I mean, if we are starting on this business, if the algorithm can do it for us, I mean, don't put so much effort on that and just use the ad networks that you can automate and that we can get the values all the time. And finally, be smarter. Don't ever forget your users because it's the most important thing that you have. Thank you very much. I don't know if you have any questions or about the amazing mediation. No questions? One question, great.
Do you want to pass it down?
Okay. Thank you for all the information you shared. I want to ask you what you think about asking the money to turn off ads.
What do I think of asking the money in return of ads?
Yeah, in-app purchase to turn off ads inside the app.
Okay, yeah, I think it's a wonderful thing. I mean, as we've been saying the whole day, there's premium users, and those guys may be willing to, or real users, they may be willing to pay for a free ads version. I mean, normally, I always believe that if you make an application that is going to be an in-app application, that is going to be focused, you have to do it from the very beginning. I mean, it's not just, let's put in-apps here. Okay? But in this case, the one of get free of our ads or get free of any other ads, I think is the wonderful version of just putting a kind of simple in-app purchase. So I completely recommend it. At the end, if you put a normal fair price for that version and use, you might get more money from that user. So yeah, and he's going to be happier to have that option. Everything at the end is about options. Do I have the option or not? So yeah, I will do it, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Cool. We're going to be outside. If you want to talk about anything about ad networks, how to monetize, how to get more money out of your ads, just talk with us or anybody that has the incredible Earn t-shirt. Thank you very much.
Thank you.